So now that your third law notes are complete, we're ready to jump into some practice with the third law. Your notes should be completely filled in. You've got your left side over here, your blanks. You had lots of examples that you were rocking over here, so make sure those are done as you worked through the idea of action, reaction forces. So we know Newton's third law states that for every action that happens, there is an equal and opposite reaction. So any motion or movement that happens on an object, when it's in contact with something else at the exact same moment, there's an equal force in the opposite direction. And these are happening on two different objects. So I wanted just to point out this example here real quick before we got started. We asked you in the notes to come up with your own action reaction down here, and there's lots of different choices that you could have, and you do have to remember, like the note said, is the objects have to be in contact with each other. Okay, so all the time when we do this in class, people want to say, well, it's the tractor pulls on the elephant and the elephant pulls on the tractor. Those two aren't in contact, so we have to be careful there. Again, people will say, okay, well, it's the tractor and the guy's arm. Again, not touching. So you've got to use objects that are in contact. So you might have something like tractor pulls rope, and then rope pulls tractor. Okay? Or maybe arm pulls rope, rope pulls arm. Okay, same thing here or here. Elephant pulls rope, rope pulls elephant. We also could use the example down here is elephant pushes on ground, ground pushes on elephant. Okay, so lots of different examples, but again, the objects do need to be in contact. So we talk about these action and reaction forces not canceling each other out, because they're happening to different objects. And I'm just abbreviating here. Hopefully you have a little more detail, right? They don't cancel out because they happen to different objects. Like we mentioned in the notes, our free body diagrams that we did last week, we said those forces could cancel because they were happening to the same object or one thing. Right? But here it's happening to the tractor and the rope, so they can't cancel each other out. And we know then the objects accelerate differently because each object has a different mass. So that trampoline example is a great one because even though the forces are equal and opposite, the person flies through the air, but the trampoline isn't flying across the yard, something like that. So you should be complete there. Here's where you're at right now. You're in your Schoology going to third law practice, and you're going to check out that first video, scenario 1, or you're watching scenario 1, practice overview. So I'm going to just set you up for the practice here so you get an idea of what to do, and then you're going to finish it up. So you're going to complete this with me here, and then on your own go through and complete the rest of the table along with the few practice at the bottom. So I'm going to pull up Schoology so you can see what you're looking at here. You're going to be going into your cycles folder, or excuse me, Newton's Laws folder. There it is. And in here should be this folder, third law practice. And when you open that up, you're going to see several different scenarios. Now notice your chart here only has 6. I did that so if there was one you really weren't sure what was happening, you can just pass it over, right? You can get to a different one. So you're going to find 5 after the example we do together here that you can tell me action reaction forces for. So looking at this first one, And these are all little videos of me and my daughter. I'm just going to turn the sound off. There's no talking or anything in any of them, so you don't need the sound. But there's me working my soccer skills. So in this first one, we'll do together scenario. We just want to say what's happening in the video. So the scenario is kicking a ball, right? That's what I'm doing. So action, reaction, first thing we want to think about are what are the two objects interacting. So a couple things you could do here. Hopefully the first thing you're noticing interacting is the ball and my foot, right? That's where a lot of people go. So ball and foot are what are interacting. And then when you're thinking about your action, reaction, force, we want to think about what's the best force word to use. Is it a push scenario or a pull scenario? So obviously in this example, the foot pushes the ball, and the reaction would be ball pushes foot, right? We've got the two objects in each of the action reaction statement, and right in between is that keyword talking about the force. Okay, that's not the only one happening in this. You could also use something about the ball and the garage door, right? So ball pushes door, door pushes ball. So as soon as that soccer ball hits the garage door, there's an equal and opposite force that occurs. You could even have said something here about my feet on the driveway, right? Me walking around. So some of them might have more than one. Some of them might be pretty clear what the example is that you're talking about. But regardless, every time you're always going to have the two objects that are in contact with each other, right? And their force interaction. And remember, these can really go either way. So if you watch this and you said your action was ball pushes foot, and that was your first statement, totally fine. Okay, it does not matter which is first and which is second. So again, there's several different scenarios here. You're going to go through, pick and choose which ones that you want to watch and fill in what you're seeing. So don't put the number here, but what's happening. What am I doing or my daughter? So just the action. Okay. So scenario is the action that's happening. And then you're going to give the two forces. Down here, you're going to think about what is a force that you are interacting with in your daily life. So you can either write it out or draw it out, either way, and then list out your own action reaction just like you did up here for the scenario. The last part here is just circling up the best way to finish these statements. So it's basically a written version of those scenario videos. So here we have an example. A bullet is loaded into a rifle and the trigger gets pulled. What do I know about the force of the bullet coming out of the rifle compared to the force of the bullet onto the rifle, right? So when we think about those objects, right, we've got the bullet. What do I know about the force here compared to the force here? And remember what the third law says about the action reaction forces. Is one less than the other? Are they equal, or is one greater than the other? And then the second part of the question is about the acceleration. So think about how they would accelerate differently and why. There's a question about that down here. So kind of going back to that trampoline example. Okay, just like we've had for the last couple laws practice, just check out that key video when you're done so you have an idea of how you did, and if you're on the right track with your thinking, getting ready for our homework check, and then of course our final quiz coming up. So use your resources to get your table filled in.